I am here now with two former state lawmakers and regular panelists on In Focus, former state rep Terri Austin and former state rep Mike Murphy. Thank you both for being with us on this pretty consequential organization day. You don't see often a vote that really has everyone's attention take place on org day like this. But today, Terri, the Senate Republicans and the state Senate in mass taking this vote to not convene again officially until January, even though the governor wanted them there in December. That was a pretty big vote today to take place on Org Day. What were your thoughts?
Well, it was really more Rod Bray setting the timeline, and that's usually it's both the speakers and the president prerogative. There's a number of days that they actually have for outside of the special session to conduct the session itself, the regular session, and giving people a certain date when they're going to reconvene certainly sent a message in terms of we're not going to participate in this December 1st through the 12th endeavor. On the other hand, you saw the House with a different approach to that.
Mike, what's your take on that, with the House deciding that they are indeed going to move ahead and meet in December, even though the Senate will not? That's a pretty interesting dichotomy there at the State House.
It is, because every move the Speaker and the Senate President Pro Tem make is symbolic in some ways, and the rank and file look to them to take their cues. And so I'm not in the room, obviously, but is that show a split between Senator Bray and Speaker Houston? You could take it that way. But at the same time, the House and the Senate often start off with different ideas on the state budget. And by the time the last day rolls around, they're unified, usually, negotiating with the governor. So if there is a split, which I'm not saying there necessarily is, but if there is one, it'll all come back together in time. The question is, what will be the conclusion?
Terri, this vote in the Senate, 29-20, do you think that's fairly indicative of where things might stand overall on redistricting in the Senate? There was one senator who got up and said, even though he's voting not to come back until January, that he was for redistricting. So maybe it's something like 28-21. Do you think that's pretty indicative of where things might stand right now?
I think it's hard to tell. I've heard anything from 13 to 14 yeses in the Senate Republican caucus, which leaves basically half that number that are not. What do they have now? They have 40 members, I think, because there's 10 Democrats. So it doesn't surprise me, quite honestly, and people may change their mind. Senator Aaron Freeman's going out to DC. Jean Lysing said no thanks. I think the pressure will be intense on these state senators over the holiday season.
Mike, where do you see that pressure campaign headed next? And will there be enough pressure to get those remaining 5 or 6 state senators to maybe change their minds and approve a new map if the House passes one in December? Once the Senate comes back in January at the start of the regular session, that's a tight window to get this through. That's maybe their last chance, a Hail Mary pass to get redistricting to the finish line. Can it work?
Absolutely. I would suggest that the probability is that anybody who actually takes the free trip to Washington is going to come back voting yes. It's just almost impossible for them to withstand the pressure. Plus, the White House has amazing gifts. They can provide jobs for family members. They can make sure your son gets into West Point. I mean, they have unlimited ability. And I tell you, everybody who goes out there has already had a dossier written up on them. They know exactly what little points to stick a needle in to get them to react and to act. And so, the fact that Jean Lysing's not going, it could be as simple as she has a family vacation, or it could be as principled as I'm not voting for this. I'm not going to waste the taxpayers' money, whether it's federal or state. It's all taxpayers' money.
Governor Braun was asked about all of this on Org Day. He responded to this news that the House is keeping their calendar open for a potential redistricting vote next month. He said, Quote, I'm glad to see the Speaker and House Republicans publicly endorse the need for fair maps. We look forward to them returning in December. He says momentum's building, and it's time for our state senators to commit to showing up. Unfortunately, Senator Bray was forced to partner with Democrats to block an effort by the growing number of America First senators who wanted to have a vote on passing fair maps. Pretty strong words from the governor there to Senator Bray. Terry, what do you make of that?
Well, one, if I were going to give the governor any advice, and not that he would even listen to me, I would say keep your powder dry. Secondly, he may or may not realize that the House makes and enforces its own rules, and the same thing for the Senate. So the governor really has no true legal power. He can certainly say, we want you to come back in for a special session, but they're not obligated to follow it. And I just don't think that that's an approach that will actually win over people.
Today on Org Day, we also saw
we think we need 9-0. We need new maps. Senator Bray should call the senators to do their job, and the president's asking for it, the governor's asking for it, I'm asking for it. So if we get the senators in to do their job, I think the right thing will happen.
Do you think that the White House pressure?
I gotta go, guys. Thank you.
Mike, what do you make of all that?
Well, it's all kind of, in my opinion, kind of amateur showboating, frankly. I mean, Lieutenant Governor Beckwith is trying to keep the reporters away from the investigation into his church and the grand jury investigation here in Marion County. Of course, you would do that, right? So you change the subject. Braun is making a big mistake if he thinks bullying Senator Bray is going to work. Somebody's already trying to do that with Senator Good. I mean, he had a swatting call, which is a fake 911 call, called in about his home for domestic violence. The Vigo County Sheriff's deputies came and smashed his door in. He had 6 police officers with guns trained on him with a laser dot on his chest until they realized, boy, did we ever screw up. And there were apologies, passed all around. So whether it's a swatting call, we don't know if that's from Indiana. We had one group said, "Oh, it's from Russia. It's Putin. He's doing that." Of course, that's always the easiest thing. Call somebody a rhino or say it's caused by somebody in Russia. One of the two, right? It's the small-minded way to approach things. But overall, bullying will not work. Bray's a smart guy. He's experienced. He's got a family legacy of toughness in politics in Morgan County. And he's not going to be bowled over by gifts or by threatening or by name calling. Apparently, is going on with the Braun folks now against him.
And Terry, obviously, the governor, beyond this redistricting issue, will need to have a relationship with Senate leaders, which certainly might be scarred by this somewhat. But Mike referenced the incident involving Senator Good. How concerning is that to hear about a swatting incident taking place the same day that President Trump really took Senator Good to task along with Senator Bray? His house was swatted and involved in this police incident. How concerning is all of that to you?
I think all of that's very concerning. The tone of politics today has deteriorated so much, and we've talked about it on this show. My dad had a saying. He said, some folks aren't wrapped too tight. And it doesn't take a lot to set them off or to send them on sort of not a wild goose chase, but a vindictive vendetta trail and it's tough to be an elected official. I mean, you go into it knowing that you are fair game for anyone who wants to not only criticize you, but some people want to go beyond that. And this kind of politics has to stop. But it's the rhetoric behind it that stirs it up. And that's what people need to understand. It's one thing to be able to disagree civilly and sometimes even passionately, but it's another thing when you invoke law enforcement or other methods to really put people in a dangerous position. All it takes in a situation like that is one quick trigger finger. And thank heavens the sheriff's department or whoever responded to this had some people there who kept their cool, because it could have been much more tragic.
And Mike, obviously, this is politics in 2025, unfortunately, where tensions escalate and people sometimes cross the boundaries in terms of what's accepted in civilized society. We've seen it in other instances. We've seen it in other states, and this week here in Indiana.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, this is really, in some ways, Trump's last gasp. I mean, he's trying to accomplish two things. First of all, it has nothing to do with policy goals. It has everything to do with avoiding a third impeachment. He's already made history of 2 impeachments. He's trying to avoid a third. And also, he's trying to set himself up so if he wants to, he can run for a third term. That's what this is all about. Trump generally wins. He will do anything to win. He will ruin people's lives. He will do anything to win. And I think the state senators and the House members and the governor need to be prepared for that.
And all of this at the Statehouse on Organization Day, coming the same day that the U.S. House took a vote on the Epstein files, and we'll have more coverage from our Washington bureau on that coming up. Terry, at the Statehouse, what else are you watching for here as we move toward the session and potentially this December session in the House? This could just be a different kind of year altogether. I mean, we could see the House taking action on bills before the end of the calendar year. Do they take some time off once they hand this all to the Senate? What other issues will they have time to look at? This is all going to look very different in the 2026 session.
Well, there's a number of issues that I hope both chambers will focus on. The first one being the affordability index in Indiana and where we are on everything from utility costs to housing costs to food costs, to the skyrocketing healthcare costs, and the people who are going to be left without healthcare, not just from the Affordable Care Act in the marketplace, but even here in Indiana, because they've cut back on funding and eliminated so many positions. The childcare crisis. I mean, there is no shortage of issues that actually need to be addressed here in Indiana. If redistricting is the only thing people talk about, I just think everybody ought to pack their bags, turn in their resignation, and go home, because let's get people in there who will focus on priorities for the people of Indiana.
Mike, another big issue that has been talked about here is property taxes, the impact on local communities, whether or not that's going to be tweaked. Senator Bray and Speaker Houston both spoke to that at the Indiana Chamber event on Monday leading up to Org Day. That's something a lot of mayors want them to look at this year, something we've talked about here recently on In Focus as well. How much time will there be for these other issues this year with redistricting taking up so much room right now?
Well, I would not be surprised if there weren't some tweaking. Tweaking is always a good way to keep at least part of the people happy, especially going into a re-election year. That way, to the people who wanted the lower taxes, the individual homeowners and businesses, you can say, well, look what I did for you in the 2025 session. And then to the mayors, you say, well, I tried to fix it. And so you kind of get both sides of the fence and try to make both people happy. I would suggest that the General Assembly will probably be out of session by the end of February and well on the way to campaign for re-election. It's going to be a tough year. Trump's numbers are very low, the lowest of his tenure. Braun's numbers are not good. And so who leads? Who's the titular and spiritual leader, so to speak, of the campaigns? It's going to be tough to find the right person that resonates.
So you think they may actually, with the House maybe starting early in December, you think they may end the entire session a little early this year, maybe toward the end of February, instead of going on into March as they're allowed to do?
Sure. Past speakers have been very proud of the fact, and it's a little bit of a game, of saying, oh, we ended early, we saved, and then they calculate how many dollars per day they save the taxpayers. But as Terry pointed out, it's a deadline to end the session. It doesn't say that you have to, it really doesn't say you have to go so many days. We got rid of that several years ago. It's just there's a date certain. I think it's March 14th in the short session.
Right.
And so what that does is it doesn't prescribe any other parameters on the session other than you will be out by March 14th. They can come in for 2 weeks if they want.
And they have it designed that way, more or less, right? So there is more time to campaign in those even-numbered election years. It's a short session in the even-numbered years. And they'll be out on the campaign trail, no doubt. But Terry, as a lot of people have pointed out, some of these state senators aren't up this year, right? That some of them,
Right.
the 4-year terms are up this year. Some of them, including Rod Bray, for instance, are up
Right.
in 2028 and not this year in 2026, although the president and backers of this redistricting movement have already threatened to primary him and others who are standing against redistricting in Indiana.
That's true. And the other part of this is both of those leaders will have to stand for re-election come organization day
Within
or
their
right
caucus.
after the election next year within their caucuses.
And Mike, do you see that being perhaps the next element to this whole story in the state Senate, a challenge to Senator Bray's leadership, perhaps as Senate President pro tem, or would the votes not be there for that either, since the votes aren't there for redistricting?
I don't think the votes will be there. First of all, there may be a couple sore heads. There always is in every caucus. You know, some ambitious guy or lady who says, you know, he made this mistake, so I'm taking him on. And 99% of the time, those challengers lose. The Senate pro tem and the speaker have tremendous power. Committee assignments, they can take you off of all your committee assignments. They can take your parking spot away. They can do all kinds of things to kind of twist you and turn you. And Bray is a veteran. And, you know, if he needs any help, his dad is around to advise him. So he knows what he's doing. And I can't imagine that he comes out a loser. The real loser here so far is the Trump effort. They tried to pack the Statehouse today. And I think, according to reporters who were there, maybe ended up with 36 people. There were bigger crowds for other issues there. So whatever money they're spending on this campaign has been a poor investment so far.
And of course, a lot of ads that we're seeing targeting some of those state senators as well. Terry, what else are you watching for between now and the start of session, whether that comes December 1st in the House or not till January in the Senate?
Well, I'll be looking personally at the agendas that all 4 caucuses put forward. You know, like I said, if redistricting is the only thing that they're going to put out there for people, voters are going to be sorely disappointed. And this is going to be a volatile election year anyway, in my view. And to have, they need to start talking to people about the things that people are facing and experiencing, as I mentioned earlier. But so far, usually that you find people putting their agendas out, or the caucuses putting their agendas out, usually in December or right before the session starts. So those are the things I'm going to be watching, because it's going to tell me whether this session is going to be a serious one or it's going to be an homage to Donald Trump.
Mike, some final thoughts from you as well. What are you watching for here ahead of, December 1st, not that far away, if the House indeed comes back into session that day?
Well, I'll be watching who files for re-election and who doesn't, who files as challengers against incumbents. That's always fun to watch. And then I'll be watching the end of the year bank account balances for people's political campaigns. Are they vulnerable? Are they not vulnerable? And of course, the ultimate one is, what do the maps look like and who files? Remember, in Indiana, I think it's true in all states, you do not have to live in your congressional district to run for Congress. So I know some people are planning to run for the original district they thought they were going to run in, no matter what the maps look like. So it is going to be a crazy year, and we just got to buckle up for the ride.
And if there are new maps, there's not going to be much time in between those maps being approved and the filing deadline for everybody to figure out where they're running, in which district, and how all of that is going to look. And then what will it look like in other states? We're seeing court rulings today about Texas. How will that impact what's happened in California? A lot of this still to be sorted out. We thank you both for being with us. Republican Mike Murphy, Democrat Terri Austin, from our In Focus panel, 2 former state representatives who have a lot of great insights on everything that's happened today at the Statehouse on Organization Day. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us.
We'll be back after this.